when the veil is thin and the moonlight dim. Are you brave enough to let her in? Where the River Wye meets King George V, a yew tree stands strong. Down from a red hill where hooligans were hanged, it guards graveyards and protects pagans in the Vesper. The yew is a marvel of both medicine and war, treating tumours for those afflicted and bent into bows, long length for the desolation of enemy troops from great distances. Life and death entwined within roots, roots that travel deep into the earth and taste the soil of history upon history. And then there is the Lady of the Yew. The greatest weapon made not from, but of the tree is its canny capability to capture and collect souls of the dead. Alas, there was one such soul, a woman of no renown, who, when departed from this realm, became entrapped within the snarled bark of the very tree along the River Wye. The woman had been wronged by many a man, in the worst possible way, and not a wrong that could be exonerated, excused, or explained. Surely the male peers would do that on behalf of their brother, but from an underrepresented perspective there was no justice in the world to be won from a woman's welt wine, and at the time, early in the short history of man, no fealty would be forged and no rightness realized. Torn by the pain and grief of a society without grace, the woman, still nameless and endless, staggered to the yew one cold October night all those hundreds of years ago. She fell into the embrace of the yew tree there, and forevermore would reside within the calming throb of wooden veins, fur of bracken, and quilt of moss. She died a death of relief in the shallowest of puddles below the branches of Mother Earth, but with her last whisper promised to avenge all who would fallen afoul to masculine tongues and the secret societies that they are thereof. And so her reign reigned upon the surrounding area of Mercia and Wales. However, her actions showed more temperance than other members of her ghoulish guild. A man went to bed. He had a hurty head. On top of his pain, he heard on his panes a tap, 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 as a branch on the glass, with gentle wee scratch, a womanly wail beckoned him to gaze out. Mist was arisen across the way, hazing his vision and making him squint. Nothing could he see, and so went back under his blanket for the night. But the tapping persisted, encouraging him further. Upon looking through the portal, he saw what he thought was mortal, a woman in pain. Rather than respond, he hid his hurty head under his bed, and in the morning he was dead. A man went to bed. He had a quiet mind, but while he lay there he began to find tap, tap, tap on his windowsill, and then a scratch, scratch, scratch still. A soft voice spoke and asked him across, so he did what he did and what he thought he must. He saw a grim vision of a maiden unhinged, and so opened his window so as to let her in. Upon her entrance she embraced him thus, for no wrongdoing had the man done such. Instead he was kind, but not deliberately so, just with a milk of generosity, so she let him go. A man went to bed. He had the clearest head, for he had done no wrong in of himself to warrant bad dreams, as he considered. Dreamless sleeps were oft his rewards, regardless of daytime mares he sometimes beheld. Resting his arrogance upon his pillow, he heard the tap, tap, tap against his window. He hastened himself up and saw the image of a woman, pale as the moon against the backdrop of black outside. Before the woman could even make a sound, he opened his house eyes, letting her in. He grinned with grim glee at this prospect, for he was certainly a he, and a piece of the proverbial. Upon she took his face in both her hands, cupped as if cradling water from the well. He beamed at her, and her glow beamed back, and she looked in his eyes, whereby then she sank. Her thumbs bent down and popped out his eyes, pushing them further into the back of his fat head. When deep she flicked them, popping them out, and the man, he screamed, begged her not to continue. His woes grew more as his hands were clasped, fingers cut off, and bone brandished out. His nose was pulled forefinger and middle to lift it up higher and further. Cracking his back was the best bit by far, so no longer bipedal, and pricking at his pecker with a twist and a turn, it turned into a drill bit made of flesh and fur. For the man was a pig, and it only seemed fitting that he look, smell, and act like one without the gift of vision. Never would his swine eyes look upon a woman, never would his dark mind have visions of violent fruition, and never would his sick fingers feel of her flesh, and never would anyone look upon him as a man ever again. The yew tree spirit is as strong as her host, a medicinal maid and a war-hungry ghost, and she rises with red hair, so to eat men like